Good afternoon, friends. Come on, at least match my energy. I know it's a post-prandial session, means after lunch. The post-effect is lingering, but probably I'll do justice to the few minutes organizing team and colleagues have given me. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm Captain Sandhya Shankar, and I come from our work with Fortis Healthcare, and so glad to share my thoughts here. And since I walked into this hall since morning, amazing thoughts and experiences, learned from various experts from who spoke about the mental health, wellness, and glad to know that. And from multiple disciplines. Although dedicated almost 25 plus years in healthcare, in various roles and various organizations, including defense forces, it's people like us who actually get more enriched, more enlightened and exposed when we learn, when we listen to our counterparts from the healthcare and from the wellness industry. So it's something, there's a lot of learnings, a lot of thoughts we take home with us and then again take it forward and translate it in our journey to make a difference, because all we do at the end of the day is provide care. Provide care who are at our disposal, right? And now it depends. It matters a lot, as on today when I stand and talk, is how we deliver it, how I make them feel safe or intimidated, who are at my mercy. Isn't it? Agree? Just a quick quiz. How many of you have experienced hospital as a patient? Right? How many of you in last 6 months or any time in your life since you became a teenager and next, have visited someone in the hospital as a friend or a family? Oh my God, 100%, almost. Okay. Now, my topic here, I'm going to talk about communication and patient satisfaction. If I talk about my beginning years as a cadet, that was a time patient had no say. And moreover, in the public sector where we were getting groomed, it was something, it was a one-sided conversation where the information and instruction was downloaded. Going forward, it was 1950s, 60s, where nothing was happening, something started to happen, 70s, 80s. 90s, it started evolving that yes, we need to talk in the hospital. It's not only among the doctors, nurses, also to the patients. But today when I stand and talk, there is something called as Patient and Family Advisory Council, mandated, highly promoted and advocated by Johns Hopkins, World Health Organization, and good organizations are actually formulating the PFCs, that is Patient and Family Advisory Councils, where the patient who has received treatment in the hospital is a part of that council along with the clinicians, nurses, administrators, because they actually help the hospitals on how to deliver care, how to deliver safe care. While in this evolving era when regulation is becoming more and more strengthened, more and more aware and stronger, and 74%, more than that, of healthcare in India is delivered through the private sector. Probably these things have started to catch more attention. There is more focus, and of course, there is a lot of work started to happen. And here I would actually tell you a story, two stories, one of a patient and one mine, and then narrow it down to relate as what are we as a citizen we are supposed to know. As when we walk into a hospital, when my dear and near one is receiving a care or receiving treatment in a healthcare facility, because I'm not here to talk about the yarn of communication, probably majority of you know better than me. Taking an instance, an EMT, that is an emergency medical technician, whose job is to rescue casualties from the streets or from remote areas and evacuate to the hospital in an ambulance stable and sound so that he receives care in time without losing that golden hour, without losing the crucial time period, and, and also preventing damage to the, further deterioration to the sick. And this happened in one of the areas in states in the northern India, when the EMT, the driver somehow had some injury while shifting the patient in the ambulance, and EMT knew how to drive an ambulance, had a valid driving license, drove the patient and the driver both to the hospital. And the patient was received in the emergency, but while parking the vehicle, entering the hospital gate, the EMT bumped the ambulance with that force into the entrance gate pillar. So, and his head also bumped onto the steering. So, has sustained some contusion, but he was already at the hospital. Help was received immediately, and patient was rescued, and he received a lot of applause. But in this entire run, the EMT also received some first aid because there was an visible contusion on the forehead. After some time, the EMT again reported to the emergency doctor that the place where I received this injury, I bumped into the steering, is really hurting a lot. I'm having headache. The doctor said, okay, fine. I did some initial assessment and advised for a CT scan. Did a CT scan, the EMT waited in the emergency, but probably after the CT scan, the report could not be sent immediately over the system because probably the people were busy and the radiologist was too occupied. After 2 hours, being already on shift duty, the person, the EMT again proceeded for had some medicine to, relieve the ailments and have a transient relief, and moved on for the duty. And over there, the doctor in the emergency also almost forgot that he needs to review a report. The radiologist in the CT scan department, when he read the report, and he said, no contusion, no internal injuries, no hemorrhage, but there is a tumor which is seen, appears to be benign. And benign means which does not spread, which is not harmful, but can increase in size at its pace. Now, there's a benign tumor. Reported, again, closed the report, signed the report, and switched over to the next patient because the line was long and the queue was long. He forgot to talk to the doctor in emergency who has referred this case for CT scan. The doctor in emergency also missed out on following up with this case, and the report kept lying in the radiology department, and the EMT was busy doing duties. The headache kept increasing, and he kept popping, sometimes Disprin, sometimes paracetamol, sometimes going to the doctor, but it wasn't frequent. Within a span of 2.5 months, the EMT once got up and had blurred vision in the morning and fainted. After that, could not be brought back to senses, but the family took to hospital, and finally he landed up, so the outcome was he landed up losing his vision. What had happened in this due course of time? The tumor increased in size, imposed pressure on the optic nerves as well as, and impaired the vision in the gentleman. Now, those who work in healthcare will relate, few things are reversible, many are irreversible. What actually happened in this entire chain sequence of events? The information kept on missing from be it EMT, be it the doctor in the emergency or in the radiology, or be it the technician who was performing and who has stored the report also in the system or put it in the envelope and nicely stacked it in the radiology report shelf. But everywhere the information, exchange of information kept on missing, which was crucial. And moreover, it went granted because it was an hospital employee. Now, shifting to another story, very important story. A lieutenant in Armed Forces Medical Services in the battlefield, Kargil War, and after 6 months of the war, when the results and the applauds and accolades were being announced and given by the Chief of Army Staff. This junior most lieutenant also was the only one in her category to be given Chief of Army Staff commendation card. And to surprise of the commanding officer, the letter which came was actually having testimonials and anecdotes of 72 soldiers whom nobody would have spoken, nobody would have actually gotten in touch to tell them that what to do if they have received a gunshot wound or there was a splinter injury, if they are going home with an amputated limb. These are the challenges they are supposed to make, and someone has actually drawn on a paper and shown that this is what you're supposed to help yourself, be it in your bladder or bowel evacuation needs, or while moving in and out of the bed, and how you're supposed to walk, talk, and resume yourself when you actually go back to your unit and join the duties. And of course, that accolade from the Chief of Army Staff became pride of the unit, the base hospital, the only hospital of Indian Army, the 92 base hospital. This actually comes when you are loaded with work, and in spite of that, you actually feel that that individual connect and with the soldier is something important. That how is his life going to be driven after he's out of my care, when he's out of my custody. And this is what is the power of communication or information and connect. And narrowing it down and bringing down on today's scenario. And what happens? There is something called as patients' rights and responsibilities, which are very well addressed and existing in the hospital when anyone goes to avail services. Make it a point you ask for it. Every hospital, especially if the hospital is an accredited hospital. Accreditation, India's accrediting body is NABH, National Accreditation Board of Hospitals and Healthcare Providers. And it has mandated, and every hospital has it. Do make it a point you ask for it, because it talks about your patient rights and patient responsibilities. It's indeed helpful. And most important thing, it communicates what you can do, what you are authorized for. Because most important thing, if I'm not satisfied by one doctor or a treatment, in the same facility, I have the liberty and it's my right to go in for a second opinion, which is actually seen as the biggest area of hesitation and intimidation among the patients who visit the hospitals and avail the services. It's all about your patient's satisfaction, how safe they feel in the facility and how satisfied they are. And second important thing is signing of consents. Doesn't matter whatever is the crisis, doesn't matter whatever is the pressure and the stressful situation is. Listening to everybody. When it is still insisted that make it a point to talk to someone, take time to just quickly run through the consent, whether it really addresses your queries, your need, and your intervention or not. Whether the side of the limb which is to be operated is written correctly or not. Whether the part of the body is marked correctly or not. But make it a point to read the consent at least and understand, because it's majority of us don't bother to read, and it's not one or two, there are multiple, many of them as on today. So when we talk of communication and patient satisfaction in the hospital, these are the 2-3 things which are very important. And last but not the least is when the hospital asks you for a feedback. Believe me, my dear friends, there is very high value and weightage to it. Also managing the service excellence zone or the area for my entire organization of 31 hospitals. It's not for the first time. I've been doing it for many years in multiple hospitals. This actually has got a lot of weightage, lot of importance in correcting the processes in the hospital. So do make it a point to give your feedback. It's not necessary that 100% every time one will receive a call from the hospital, but it is certainly doing its bit in moving and influencing a process or a person in the hospital. And at last, do appreciate. So, and in case people forget, the doctor, the nurse forget to tell what is it, how is it done, how are you feeling, or what is going to be done to you, or why this medicine is being given. It's your right. It's the patient's right. Do not hesitate to ask. Do not hesitate to ask. After all, it's your body. It's the disease for which you are getting treated. It's the patient. So this is the time when we say it's aware patients, learned patients. Let it not be seen as a well-Googled patient, a well-Googled visitor. It is actually an aware visitor coming for information and treatment. Because the dynamics in the healthcare have changed as on today. When I talk of that 70+% percentage of healthcare being delivered in the country, in whatever huge, large corporate hospitals or a small nursing home, rights of the patients remain the same everywhere, because that's what is today's law about. So this is, one has to be aware the power and the scope of the communication, and then only it translates into a non-intimidating, non-anxiety causing, a great level of satisfaction from this industry or the services which are delivered in the hospitals. So let's take the responsibility and be aware. And last but not the least, I'll finish it with a quote that, tell me, I'll forget. Teach me, I'll remember. And involve me, I'll learn. So don't wait to be involved, to be invited, but do get involved by virtue of your awareness. And that's all I have to ask. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you.